videos, the meeting's being broadcast live and video recorded, so please know that. And we'll start with open session. Is anybody here for open session? So if you're not on a specific agenda item, or even if you are, but you want to come here outside of that realm and speak for open session, please let us know. Anybody? No? Okay. Thank you. So, Ryan, we have any announcements?
No new announcements, just quick thank you to everyone involved in the Hubbardston Field Day. I wasn't able to attend, but I heard those who went had a great time. I did not win the cow flop challenge.
It was fixed.
Feels rigged to me, but
So, did you have the kids there?
I didn't end up attending.
Oh, you didn't go. You just said that.
All I wanted to do was win the
I got you.
thing. But thank you to the Lions Club for putting on an excellent field day again, and for our special events coordinator for assisting them. Just one of the great things that Hubbardston does. Just my time did it. It's wonderful. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to new business, and we've got a couple of updates we're going to do starting off today. The first one would be the Hubbardston Open Space Plan update.
If I could just interject on the appointment,
Yeah, you want to do that first?
if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So we have here before you tonight the board, Caleb Fontaine, who's been appointed as our newest part-time police officers. You know, we have four part-time police officers to supplement our full-time force. So she's here to show herself to the public, introduce herself, and to be sworn in, and obviously answer any questions that you may have. But we appreciate you coming on board and serving our community.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing many successful things about you.
So Kayla comes, we started a process to hire the best qualified person for the opening that we had after the retirement of Kevin Mailman. Sergeant Kuchar headed the search committee for her, and she was by far the best and most experienced candidate we had, so
Kayla's got quite a bit of experience. She's worked a few years with the Bolton Police Department. She's currently working for the DOC. This is a new job for her. And she was previously working for the Auburn Police Department as a full-time dispatcher there. And she had some very good recommendations that came with her. And she had a great interview. So I think she's going to be a good addition to the police department.
Okay, so I think we said this a couple times, but we're really proud of our police department. So I mean, the faith that they put in sort of new selections and new hires, we completely trust and hope that all of that is sustained by all the members. So thanks for coming along and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Town Clerk Laura Reed to give the oath.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially perform all duties imposed upon you according to your best skill and judgment for the ensuing term imposed upon you by your appointment as part-time Hubbardston police officer for the town of Hubbardston according to the laws of the Commonwealth, so help you God?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I assume you prepared
Thank you very much.
you've prepared a speech for us as well? No. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks.
Good luck.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Now you're up.
Yeah, I intended to be back in about 2 weeks, a year and a half ago, and it's taken a while.
All right. If you could just introduce yourself.
Bob Hatch, chairman of the town's Open Space Committee. Approximately a year and a half ago, we had been in the process of updating the town's open space plan, which is a pretty extensive document, the content of which follows an outline defined by DCR. And it probably took a year or so to get the update made, and now it's taken a year ago to get it through an approval cycle. Just to get you caught up a little bit, when it was presented approximately a year ago, Jim had a number of comments. Most of them were rhetorical and minor updates to the plan, such as he commented basketball courts were complete, that wasn't identified in the plan. So we went through and made those updates. Those have been incorporated in the plan. There was one that might be a little bit of interest, not that it has any impact on the plan, but he questioned something about dumpster landfill, and in the plan it identified that there was a landfill on Williamsville Road that was closed, that was identified in here. We did a little bit of research, and nobody knew about, including ourselves, about a landfill on Williamsville Road. But in Mass DEP, Commonwealth of Mass DEP document titled Inactive and Closed Landfills, was identified that there was a landfill at 57 Williamsville Road that was closed in 1968. So
An old
I'm
burn?
not sure where it is.
Was it an old burn dump or something? Or there are lots
Right.
of those all around. I don't know.
I'm not sure, and there's a house there now, so it might have been out behind that house or something. So I didn't try to attempt to get out onto the site, but that's where that came from. The area that took quite a bit of work was getting an ADA section. The process of getting this approved is through the town boards, but also to get it approved by DCR. They have tentatively approved it. In fact, one of the main functions of the plan is to be eligible for DCR grants, and there's some substantial grants, like the town got a $900,000 grant towards the acquisition of the Mount Jefferson land up there. So there's some substantial money that is available. The plan was good enough, so we are qualified to apply for grants, even though it's still pending final approval. So it was good enough to do that. So the town is eligible to get grants.
And grants for what? Grants for purchase of more open space?
Yeah, it could be that, but other activities too, improvements to property, the trail systems, for example. If you need a new culvert in, you could apply for a grant to cover some of those costs if we needed something like that. So there's a variety of grants that are available through DCR that we now are eligible to apply for. Their only issue with it was addressing the ADA portion of it. In the outline for the generation of an open space plan, there is a requirement to address ADA, American Disabilities Act. And the biggest thing that was in there, and we worked with Ryan to get that resolved, the town had to have an ADA focal point, if you would, contact, so that if there were any ADA issues, not even just relative to open space, but anything associated with the town, there had to be some vehicle for a person with such disabilities to go and say, this needs to be improved. And the town did not have that, and we've worked with Ryan to make sure that that gap was closed. And that's what took quite a bit of time to get that all straightened out. But that is all straightened out. We had an appendix in here to address that, and a minor update to the ADA section of the plan to address that final issue. So we've already gone to Concom and Planning Committee, et cetera. So we have letters of approval from them. So the last one waiting before it goes to DCR for final acceptance is just concurrence from the select board. And there's nothing, it is not a binding plan. Whatever is in there puts the town in no obligation. So it's just a collection of some really interesting material about the town. It covers logistics, the structure of the town, geographical aspects. It's a pretty extensive plan. There's a lot of information in the plan. Anybody wants to know a good summary of the town from every single aspect, recreation, history, etc. It's a pretty decent plan to get to know the town.
So how about, so we've seen a draft of this obviously and had time to comment, and then there are obviously an older version of some of the boards that are still part of the first couple of pages, the planning board formerly, even select board and all that. Does the final version have all the updated information on there?
Relative to the structure of those boards?
Just the names of the people on there, I guess, more
Okay,
than
yeah.
anything.
That I did not do, but I
Okay.
will do that.
Okay, it'd be simple enough.
Okay, yeah. And then all it would take, once I do that, then I can update that and then submit it for then final approval. And then all it needs is just even minutes of the meeting that it was approved or something, just some acknowledgement that is documented, that the select board is in concurrence with submitting the plan to DCR.
And so we might be able to do that tonight anyway, right? So it's contingent upon updating it
Yes,
with the,
yeah,
you know,
then I
correct-
could just do the update
Correct.
through Ryan.
So, yeah. Anyone have any comments on?
But I can say that MRPC, who's looking at our master plan right now, has taken a look at this.
Yeah.
And they commented that they did such a good job with the open space and rec plan that it's only gonna take a very tiny piece of a grant that we applied for to turn that into a master plan chapter.
Nice.
So we kinda got a double hit out of it, didn't have to use a whole grant to do a plan, so they thought it was a good plan and well done.
Yeah, I forgot to comment on the MRPC, they were one of the approval cycles, and per what Ryan said, they thought it was an outstanding document.
Thanks for the work.
Saved us quite a bit of money.
Right.
So, I'll make a motion to approve the open space plan with the amended changes.
Second it?
Any discussion? Bob, you want to say anything else towards it while we're in discussion here?
Nope, that's
No?
it.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes? Unanimous? Unanimous? Okay.
Very good.
All right, thanks, Bob.
Thanks, guys. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, good work.
Okay, next we are Emergency Management Department update. Hi.
I'm Judy O'Donnell, and Assistant Manager. And also, I'm also the coordinator for the CERT team. And I also happen to run the Wachusett Medical Reserve Corps as well.
Okay. That's it?
That's it. Little retirement fund.
Okay.
I did bring, this is something I've had for a while. I thought I'd share it with you. It's an 8-point checklist for our communities on looking at how to build a resilient community. And I think we have a good start on that, but I thought I'd just share it. It's just for your own perusal.
And where's the sort of the template come from with this 8-point checklist? Is that something that's commonly used?
FEMA.
FEMA. That's a pretty good template, yeah.
Yeah. So what I've been doing, and speaking of FEMA, so what I did this, there was a disaster plan, and then over the years, as I continued to work doing certain MRC, I also took some courses out of FEMA. I have about 20 credits, college credits, towards a associate's degree in emergency management, along with my other degrees.
Good luck.
It's just time consuming. And anyway, I just decided that the trend is now to go to something called emergency support functions. And so I decided to try to bring it down to the local level, because it starts at the national level, and there's like 15 different groupings. And what they've basically done is taken emergency response and just broken it down into its different components: transportation, communication, medical, sheltering, things like that. So, and that's what I did over the summertime. And there's the book. And what I did is I took each one and broke it down into something that was a little more doable on the local level, especially for a small town, because a lot of the templates out there are for big cities, and that's not really applicable to what the town needs. So, and then on the back side, there's plenty of space for writing down the problems they do find, and then also making notes.
Do you collaborate with our, police and fire and first responders and whatnot when it comes to sort of
Yeah,
some
right
of the
now,
components?
I'm actually working on a project with fire department, Jim Bear, and that's the second half of this piece. This is part one. And we're taking and trying to look at all the different hazards that Hubbardston may face. And the CERT team is actually very involved with this, and they chose wildfires, winter storms, and tornadoes as the first three they wanted to work on. So that's what we're doing, and we're using the response, prevention, preparedness, response, recovery, and then mitigation. Those are the 5 different groupings. So we're using those 5 different groupings to create a whole plan, which would be 7 or 8 pages for each and every hazard. So that's going to take us probably a couple of years, but that's the next piece. So we're going to be creating, and I've also been working on creating some guidelines, an administrative manual, so that somebody, if I get run over like with an 18-wheeler, then somebody can pick up the pieces.
An emergency thing we're supposed to be looking for?
We have a response for that.
Yeah, you have to respond. You pick up the manual and pick up where I
Right.
left off.
Right.
So I'm working on that as well.
Great.
And that's pretty much what I have right now so far. As I continue to look, there is something called a co-op plan, and the Board of Health, I know, was asked by the DPH to write one like several years ago, and I know that's completely outdated. And I thought I had a copy at the house, and evidently it was so old that I threw it out. So, and now NEMA is coming back and saying that the government, the new folks, need to also have a co-op plan. So I have the template at home, and I'm studying it to figure out how we can put it together fairly simply and easy and user-friendly. So
Right.
we have an emergency with whoever's there can walk right into it. There's also the last piece that we also have to work on and kind of look at, and that's public health preparedness and response. Again, I have a meeting with the Board of Health tomorrow. We'll be talking about that, and that's responding to threats, illness threats in particular. DPH always likes to use the flu pandemic, but I think we probably need to think on a wider scale on that.
Right.
So, I just wanted to, September is Preparedness Month, and I just wanted to kind of update you, let you know that we are alive.
Yeah. Oh,
I met with Ryan, and he said, well, what do you need? And I said, I need a closet, I need a shelf with plugs for the radios, for the communication radios, and a shelf for all these books that I'm creating.
Right.
And what did Ryan say?
He said, good luck.
It's a good segue into the next.
Yeah. He said, good luck. So,
Still looking, I didn't say.
yeah. So that's my story, and I'll stick to it.
Well, I very much appreciate the update. Your enthusiasm is
Yeah,
fantastic.
A lot of work went into that already, and there's more to come, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Well, it's sort of my second career.
All right. Hope to see you again soon then.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Excellent.
All right.
Great
Thank
update.
you.
Thanks.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so next we have the municipal building and storage space discussion. How do you want to frame this one, Ryan, as far as starting off here and order of operations and that sort of stuff?
So in previous conversations, the board had begun discussions again about what to do. We had started going down the path of several different options for municipal building space. That got put on hold during the, I won't call it budget crisis, but trying to figure out the budget over the late spring and early summer. And before going on the annual town meeting warrant, the board said we'd like to put this discussion off until after the budget season to again bring it back up. And it was mentioned then again as part of the Board of Selectmen goals. So during that discussion, the board said they would like to hold a public meeting session about that, and I recommended, and the board agreed, that members of the public safety community, some representatives from Town Hall, and the Council on Aging, the 3 biggest players in these project discussions, could come and give sort of a synopsis of their current needs, just to reframe and update the conversation, and then answer any questions the board had as you head into the next phase of this discussion, which would be some type of longer-term decision.
Okay, so I mean, what sort of rekindled this is we collectively decided that regardless of time frame, that wasn't really the focus of our discussion. It was more of the need, which is the real, the actual, the current, and inevitable need for new space. So not wanting to push that off into future boards, it you know, is always the right time to discuss it, which is what sort of drove us into this, and then even to do some schematic design and expenditure of some money on some of these structures. So I guess, you know, ultimately we're here now.
And then just to add just a little bit, I don't want to call myself an outsider because I've invested a lot of time here in this community, but a lot of the discussions as I've come into this position in the last 18 months have revolved around the process of trying to approve X, Y, or Z, or the fallout from that. And it was really hard to uncover the initial conversations, which was there is a need for municipal space. As many administrators as I've been able to go through on files have identified it as the #1 issue here in town. Master plan in 1988 said that municipal building space would be an issue, and every subsequent study of the town has said that some decision needs to be made in terms of space. So I just wanted to reframe the conversation, the board, not in what has happened, but what is still needed, and then how to address that, and obviously give the board the ability to ask questions about what space people are currently considering, or what they need in order to do their functions, which is public safety, residential services, and on our side running the town.
Okay, so I mean, no real format here, I guess, to get started. Is there somebody out there who'd like to sort of talk about their opinion on space in any way, shape, or form, and then we can just kind of go from there?
Chief, you want to start with your summary? And
So, I don't think anybody in this building hasn't seen the police station. It's inadequate at best. But environmental comforts aside and those things aside, the really troubling thing with the condition of that building is we violate Massachusetts general laws every single day. We don't have a lockup. Templeton just went through this with their refurbishing of their building. 3,000 population now. 3,000 or more, you need to have a lockup. You need to have a secure area. We don't have a secure area. Massachusetts general law, you're not to cross paths with females, juveniles, adult males. I mean, it happens all the time because we don't have space. So these are concerning from a liability standpoint for the town, an ongoing liability standpoint. Not to mention, storage is woefully inadequate. I was listening to that, and Ryan had spoken to me about getting a shelf for them. And I was like, let me know where you want to get the shelf, because we don't even have a shelf. Everything is just jammed in there. You know, Ryan has looked at putting covered parking and doing different things. Well, let's face it, it's lipstick on a pig at this point. We keep trying to dress this building up. And we've done everything over there. I mean, I've personally kicked in carpeting and redid the carpeting and painted and did all the things that we can to kind of keep the building presentable and professional. But it really is a losing cause. I walk in the morning and I'm pelted by insulation falling through the ceiling and mouse poop and just all kinds of things that really shouldn't happen in a professional building. And that's not even talking about the security of the building and the security of evidence and the security of the lobby. We spoke of that, and I actually had guys come in because I was asked to get people in to say, how much would it be to leave the lobby open, unattended, with nobody other than a camera? Well, the problem is a drop ceiling and you can get anywhere from that lobby. So in order to, I couldn't even get a price from anybody that would even want to do that job, because cladding that whole thing in something that wouldn't allow you to get anywhere else in the building would be almost impossible. So I mean, those are the shortcomings of this building and of our space that we're in now. Just, like I said, the security and safety of the officers. We have a Murphy bar. We have a wooden bench with a bar that we handcuff people to. Almost 5,000 population. We could do better than that, and we just can't. We just don't have the space, or we can't bring in. And on top of all that, from a standpoint of management, if I have a guy that's working by himself arrest somebody, we have no police coverage in town until that arrest is completed and they're put away either in Athol or they're processed up in Rutland. You have no police coverage. So we're losing productivity because we don't have a building that can securely have somebody else in the building with it. We need to have more people in the building because we don't have the facility to lock people up. So that's a problem. And I think as a town, the liability, if something were to happen to an officer, if something were to happen to a prisoner, if something were to happen to a domestic violence victim, a child victim from an adult who's, they're not supposed to cross paths, we'd have some problems. And that's where we're at. That's really where this has nothing to do with we want a fancy new building or any of that stuff. This has to do with, this is a need, and this is the liability by not addressing the need.
So how about, so that was a little bit more an overview as well as sort of interior stuff. How about exterior, based on, you know, what we've got? I don't mean the exterior of the building. I mean where cruisers are, where cruisers come in and out of, that sort of thing.
I mean, from a standpoint of going to calls, I mean, you guys have been here at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:15 in the morning. You're not getting out of this parking lot for a good 15, 20 minutes without kids walking across the parking lot. So that's a problem, both at 8:15 to about 8:25, 8:35, and at 3 o'clock to 3:15. I know Jeff has been there. He's seen the traffic there. Everybody has had kids in the school. It creates a lot of unnecessary. I mean, I can't get out without inching out because people park all the way up to the driveway, which I think I'm going to request a sign for that small portion, but it's a sign. It creates a problem. The congestion creates a problem, and on Thursdays when the seniors use the parking lot, it's hard. It's hard to get parking. It's hard to get in. It's hard to get out sometimes for them. There's trucks coming out from the school, so it does create issues. And on top of all that, I mean, sometimes we have people come in that want to be anonymous. They want privacy. We don't have that. There's no way you're walking in from that parking lot into here without somebody seeing who you are. So that's an issue as well. A lot of departments now have a back, that you park it back, and it's a little bit more private, and you can actually speak with the police in private. We don't have that. We don't have a meeting room. We don't have a training room. We don't have any of those things. And you know, kind of apropos tonight, we don't have a female locker room. So we're going to have to figure that out. So it's just the issues that we deal with on a daily basis.
Okay, and just one more question towards this, I guess for now, is you know, somewhat recently we had an architectural firm, I guess, interviewing you again, right? That you went through sort of all the requirements for that. And just to sort of reiterate, and because I was part of it when we did it a few years ago as part of the sort of initial, along with the senior center stuff, just about everything, if not everything, is statutory. Everything that is part of that is required, whether it's a square footage or whether it's some of the other stuff you've talked about. It's just part of, so there's so many people, you hear, well, why don't you just put a box, you know, and everybody can fit in the box over here in that corner. But a lot of the things that are in there are, if you're going to build a new building, certain things have to be there.
For us and fire.
Right.
There are unique needs for both of us that we have to be met in order for the state to sign off on that building for that use.
Okay.
Chief, you want to go next?
Yeah, well, the fire department is building, I think, built in 1962, block cinder block building. Was the funds that I know of were raised by volunteers, and they volunteered to build that building. Definitely never envisioned the apparatus that's in that station right now on Main Street. It's double, if not triple, the size of what was held in that building when it initially was opened. And now it's to a point where the building's almost 60 years. Part of the ceiling collapsed a couple of years ago, had to be removed. The upstairs is basically storage because that's all it's fit for. The water there, the iron is, I don't, even for Hubbardston, it's really bad there. It's killed a few filtration systems in its time there. It has a cesspool where it is on the property. I have no idea and how long that'll last for. A lot of issues. So then in 2000, town wanted us to entertain an ambulance service, did the research, and we needed more space. So we moved up to 48 Gardner Road and back. It was a warehouse. And the same as the chief. You know, a lot of the work was done, the majority of that work was done by volunteers, in-town contractors, and people on the department to turn that warehouse space at 48 Gardner Road, that was a warehouse, into office space, training room, etc. And that's where the ambulances are held. Downside of that is we pay now over $20,000, I think it's $21,000 a year for that space. We are fortunate for a long period of time. I think it was $16,000 a year. It held at that price, and the owner has recently, over the last, I think, 5 years, have gone into a lease again, but that price has increased. And it also includes us heating the ambulance bay now too. The big issues for us is, you know, all the little things, except for, I would say, I haven't had mouse poop fall on me in my office, like the chief, but we have the same things, not handicap access. We don't have adequate storage for our records. They're just out on the shelves on the in the ambulance bay. So we had the roof that leaked a few years back. A lot of records were damaged. You know, things of that nature. Biggest thing for us is one, making that payment, the not being under the same roof with all the apparatus. So if there's a fire call and the staff is at 48 Garden Road, they have to travel to the Main Street station, which is a 2 to 3 minute delay in response. And then the inefficiency of both buildings, but especially the Main Street building, as far as heating and energy. You know, it's an oil bill anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a year to heat that. So those are just some of the issues. There's many more minor and moderate ones, but those are the bigger ones.
Wasn't one of the things that came up years ago, in terms of that, the apparatus, for example, if you had to get a new one, had to be specially designed just to be able to, because of that building isn't built?
Yeah, like the new engine, when it was designed, it has to be, as the years have gone on, apparatus just kept getting bigger, and if you don't have length, then you have to get the height, but we have a 10-foot door restriction, so if you lower the truck, then to get 1,000 gallons of water on the truck, to get the hose bed that you need, you have to lower it, and when you lower it, you're gonna make it longer, and there was like, where the new engine is where the stairs go up to the second floor, and the oil tank's right there. So it wasn't a matter, it was like, oh, we can take out that stuff, but now you have to have the oil tank inside for the heat, so that wasn't a possibility. So the truck had to be designed with that in mind for the size and the space that it occupies. So our engine 3 actually is only a couple inches from the front of the door to the back of the station.
We also had a problem also, didn't we, in terms of shower for hazardous material?
Yeah, we don't have any of that kind of facility there.
And also for women.
Yeah, at the other station, we just have one bathroom. There is a shower. I don't know when the last time it was used. The same thing, the water there at 48 Garden Road has to be tested. I believe they come in a couple times a month. On occasion, there has been issues with it, but overall, I think it's fine. But it's not something you'd want to drink, that's for sure.
So how about the same sort of question, so exterior-wise and responding to calls, and I know you just talked about going from one to the other, but just on a normal basis.
Going from one station to another, and the delay it causes. And then just not having the proper apparatus bay, you know, do truck checks, you know, in the wintertime. If there's parts of the apparatus you can't even get to once it's parked in the station. So trucks have to be pulled out, you know, maintenance and stuff like that. It becomes, you know, difficult to accomplish inside the building itself because it's so tight.
Plus, as you pointed out, we are renting space.
Yes, 48.
So we're at the mercy of the person who
We've
owns
rented for the last
the fire department. So
17 years. Yeah, 17 years, and who knows for how.
it's a lot of money.
And that thing, that building too, there's concerns about that building. It's not, well, I don't want to say, there isn't a lot of maintenance that goes into that building by the owner. And it's in some rough conditions, and we've had a deal in the past with the roof leaking, and that took some time before it actually got repaired. And we had some, you know, like I said, records that were damaged because of that and stuff. So, you know, it's difficult too when it's not your building and you know, need to get something done. It's difficult sometimes to get that accomplished. So.
Okay, anything further for these guys at the moment? You guys just hang out for a few more minutes and we could tie it all in as well?
Sure.
Okay.
We have put a few members of the Council on Aging here as well, who share this building with the town offices, and have also been involved in many, many iterations of these projects.
Yeah, I think we've kind of beat this like a dead horse, but the seniors definitely need a little bit more room. We need a couple bathrooms. We don't have handicap bathrooms for a lot of seniors, and now that a lot of them are getting older and older, they have walkers and wheelchairs. That's very hard for them to get around here. We need to have a private office because more people are coming in. We have a shine counselor now. They need the privacy to work with him. Plus, when they come in, they want to work with me or talk to me privately. There's no space, no way we can talk quietly without everyone hearing what's going on in there. We have no room to run only one project, one program at a time because there's no room to have two things going on. And the mock lunches, we need a kitchen. The kitchen that we have now, we have a difficult time with storage and the refrigerator. So, I mean, those are just a few things that we need to have a little more space. We're perfectly happy to stay here. We've done that over. It's very nice, it's comfortable, it's warming, we have a nice place, people like to come. We're happy there. If we could get a little more room, a couple more offices, we're perfectly fine just to stay where we are. But we do definitely need some more storage. We did buy a shed out back so we could store some of our stuff out back in the shed.
I think I'm blocking it right now, sorry.
You what?
I said I think I'm blocking it where I parked, so I'll
Oh,
move
shame.
later. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So unless anybody else has something to add to our little school. So we talked about this, Walter, anything to add? So we're just thinking about the seniors in the town, and our population, the senior population has grown so much, and the senior center is growing every day with new seniors. I have a trip going with 54 people on it, and they're young seniors, they're 60 years old. So I'm saying that these people are starting to come in and come into the senior center for the events and the social activity and the things that we provide here. So there's more and more people, new people coming all the time.
And once you hook them, they
They-
want to
they
stay,
don't-
right?
Right.
Parking is
Well,
because when you have a big event.
yes, parking
There's
is a
no-
problem, definitely. I don't know. They
Okay.
have for me.
No, that's good. I mean, I actually did have sort of a follow up to it. So, again, as you know, I was part of the committee for a long time, going through what we went through. As far as because the questions come up from the town inevitably with all the discussions, and we'll come in a little bit further with town office space as well. There's always the question of, okay, why can't we all just share one big building, right? So that sort of, and there's been reasons for and against and all that sort of thing. I guess you've sort of updated us on, your own sort of feelings on where things stand senior center wise. Where are you at? Have you thought about that any further, or what are your thoughts on that? Have those evolved? Have those changed, or where are you guys at with that?
Okay, so you're saying, are we would like to go into a new building?
Well, I'm just saying, if there was going to be a one sort of big building that everybody would be in, is that something that would
We
be
would go, but the thing is, we would have to see the plans
Right.
to make sure that it would meet the needs that we have. Other than that, we could stay here and meet the needs that we had if we had to.
Yep.
So I think that we would go, we're open to anything,
Yep.
I mean, if that's something the town wants to do, I think the town people need to make that decision, and whatever they decide they wanna do, we'll probably go along, as long as the plans meet our needs, that as soon as that
Yeah,
needs.
no, thanks for your honesty. I just figured I'd ask that. So, thank you. Go ahead, Deb.
So I just had a question. You kind of alluded to it a little bit, Claudia. I know one of the things that I think about is, we do have a growing population of older folks here in town, and maybe in time we'll be attracting some more older folks if we do some over 55 housing or what we decide to do. But my question is, what do you think the percentage is of the senior population that we have here that's actually accessing the senior center?
Well, I would say we have around 1,100 seniors come in. Maybe we have, did you say a third?
I would say.
Maybe.
Some that can't come in, but.
And we also, visit them at home. Some people go home, we like to do outreach like that. Go to their home. We give rides to people who need rides. I get a lot of calls from families who have their mom and their dad, and they have to put them, they ask that we go and help them with that. I mean, out there that maybe don't actually come in here, but we have to go to them.
Right.
So I
But
would
of course,
say,
the ones
but
that you're
if we
going
can,
to don't need the senior center, they need your outreach, but they don't need the senior center, so that's kind of where I'm going, is like, how big of a space do we really need for the seniors that are using the senior space?
We are busy every single day.
Right, but with how many people? 25 people?
oh no,
We
A
play
hundred
cards on a
people?
I can
Thursday
give
afternoon
you
with
that. I think
38
we have
people.
like, wasn't it like 300 people that come
Oh,
in here?
easy.
And out of here easy.
On a daily basis?
Not on a daily
Not on a
basis,
daily
no,
basis.
no, for the programs that we have, the Shine Counselor, for the programs that we run, for the trips we
Yeah,
do,
that's all
all
right.
that, yeah. So there's gonna be at least
No, no.
Right,
at least.
but whoever's using the building on a daily basis is, how many?
See, but the building also, I want to step in here just to help her out. So the meals are prepared to go to people at their homes. I mean, it's the kitchens used. People come here to help prepare the meals and lot food comes, and also people who use the center every day that are helping out. There's so many volunteers that come in here on a daily basis.
Right.
And all of that, even if you're talking about the people who don't come in, all these other people that volunteer here are part of what helps
Using
the
the
outreach.
space, yeah.
Right, they use the space to, not necessarily for themselves, but to help other seniors.
Right.
So the center is used even when you're talking about usually for other.
Right, and I get that. What I'm trying to get with is, how big a square footage do you guys need?
Okay, so we have.
That's what I really want to know.
Well, I think just to jump in real quick before you go, Ryan, because I know you want to go. Right? Not leave, turn. Was it seems to me that Claudia is saying, look, a little bit more, as in like where we're sitting, with some handicap accessibility and some other creature comforts, maybe closing off some walls because you can sort of talk through those walls because they don't go to the top either. That sort of thing is enough. Which is an answer. So I think that just to sort of summarize that, it feels like that's
And I'll
what's
tell
going
you,
on.
the more we have to offer, the more, if we turn away
Right.
people that wanna do programs for
Mhm.
us,
Yeah.
and wanna come in, we have to turn them away because we have no time, no space to put them, no, like the guy in the VNA wants to come in, we have a person for the hearing, they wanna do hearing screening, they wanna do teeth, dental work, they wanna come in and do that. So the more programs that you have to offer, the more seniors are gonna come. They're gonna say, oh, this is a good program, I think I'm gonna come to this. And that, we have our newsletter that goes out, 500 people. So I think, like what you're saying, I can't give you an answer here because if we had the appropriate
Maybe you
thing,
should stop in
we
the
would
center and see how we work.
yeah.
Look at our
Oh,
charts,
I
see
don't
how
want
many
that to come
people.
across like I don't think you
Oh,
guys
no,
are
no,
doing.
no.
You're doing a great job. There's no doubt about it. I was just asking for, this is something that we have a need. We have a real need for this, and so I think people need to know, what you really are accomplishing because sometimes they think, oh, they play bingo. Well, no, you do way more than play bingo. You do a lot of stuff for people. So, yeah, it's good
Also,
for
I
people to know.
think we need to be planning not just for what we have now, but for the future, because there's a lot of people who have never set foot in the senior center. And they probably won't, as long as they still have their spouse, as long as they're still working. But let them all of a sudden be alone, and they find they really need people. And there's no one really but seniors that understand what other seniors go through when they lose their spouse, lose their family, and a lot of times, kids are busy, they don't have time for them, but they can come here, they can sit down, have a cup of coffee, visit, and it's really vital to their well-being, mental and physical well-being, to have
Getting purpose.
social programs.
Exactly, yeah.
Ryan?
Just to give it kind of a more bureaucratic feel, the liabilities that I observe in the spaces, we share a wall and rooms with the seniors, and I'm in there every single day. So I can say that having your kitchen space and your coffee pot connected to where your activities are happening, it's not a good idea. So when you're serving food, etc., usually those are separated for a reason in order to limit some of that contact. Bathrooms, I'm obviously not going to tell any stories or anything like that, but when you have one bathroom and senior populations, emergencies and stuff, you have to share the space. That's not right. That's not a dignified space for seniors to occupy. Just adding that extra layer of just decency is something that, if not regulatory, is needed in terms of liability. Additionally, multiple programming, I don't think that means 2 giant senior centers. I think it means like doing one smaller activity and maybe being able to expand into one larger activity. And lastly, the privacy thing. So I work here on Fridays, and there's shine counseling going on here because there's a programming there. It's just hard for people to talk about their lives when everybody's watching. So that need for office space is not, to have multiple offices in a bureaucratic way, but it's to be able to talk about things that no one would want to talk to in front of other people, especially when you're in need or vulnerable. So it's those spaces that I hear in these conversations being discussed. Never really heard of a conversation about a grand senior center or a palace, more just kind of accommodating the current needs of seniors and what most people would think would be a respectable space.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've heard that's sort of 3 of the 4 here. So now we obviously have municipal office space, which I know you touched on a little bit here, but we've obviously got some over there at the library, and then we've got some here. It's probably appropriate to talk about what we've got and what we really need relative to that. I don't know if you're okay to speak to that. I know you are.
I'm going to represent the staff, talk about it at a higher level, and we have Patty here from one of our more cramped offices in the building department to kind of give some personal feel, and then Christina gave some commentary from the planning board side as well. And I won't be too long. But starting with the library is building a 5-year plan right now, talking a lot about how they can increase their services because the footprint they have is too small to really expand much farther. So they have a children's room and another room, that's about it in terms of how much usage they get. They have enough money with their assistants to be open more, but they don't have enough space really to accommodate more programming. So they're talking about a 5-year plan. They can't really go past a couple years while the squatters are still in their basement. Mostly because you would want to expand down there to provide service levels, and then what do you do with the building? Or you can't even start that conversation if there's going to be a long-term residency there. So it's really inhibiting that, never mind the grants that are available. And if you think about libraries long-term in terms of the state and where they are federally, libraries want to stay open. They want to expand their services, so they're willing to give money in order to make that happen in a community like ours. So the grants are much more significant than, say, some of the municipal uses where they want that to get small.
Without squatters.
Right. So they cannot access that while we're still in there. And I'll talk quickly about workflow. So right now we have 2 different buildings, and we have residents that come around, and I'm not going to say it's 10% of our time, but it's a couple percentage points of our time just directing people around, because this is not a town hall, it's a split office. The way we're structured in terms of space really makes us dependent on this clerk system or this assistant system where there's 1 in each office for a limited amount of time because we don't have the budget for full-time benefited employees. You could be more efficient with your money and your space and solve some of the budget issues if you had a better workflow. So you could hire 1 or 2 full-time employees to manage the departments, because we don't have huge departments. But you can't do that the way we're structured in these offices. And if someone's out just for their basic family needs or sickness, an entire department closes down, and that really causes people to look at government poorly. Because the one time they needed assistance from the government, the door was closed. So we're trying to do things more efficiently here, but it's really the space that's limiting us. Because we got to man both buildings. And then if, say, Lori, who's a full-time employee over there as the town clerk, and some of our 1 or 2 assistants out, she spends a lot of her time trying to answer everyone else's question and not doing town clerk questions, so that causes some inefficiencies. Here, I can speak to our finance team. We really want to lock this area down. This is where finances happen. We do have a good security system. Don't test it. Our police are right there. Okay, but we want to make sure this is safe. I can't have just a regular employee conversation in my office because so I'm thinking about sound machines. I joke sometimes that I West Wing people around the building to try and get some privacy. I can't do employee anything with these walls, never mind negotiate with our unions or bring people in. And I joked with the seniors tonight, was on the phone trying to talk about a grant opportunity, and they were doing their senior singers, which is my favorite on Tuesdays. They sound amazing and it's awesome, but they're singing Hallelujah in the background. And the person on the phone's like,
no, the person on the phone's like, you guys are having a joyous time, you don't need any money.
Like, you guys are fine. They're like, who's singing? Well, it's our seniors, and and they're like, get an office. So it's just the way that kind of went. So that's, they're not we could really create a much more efficient, much more open, much more responsive government with some better structure. Now, I will say, we'll work in any environment. You give us an environment, we're gonna do the best we can to deliver government services, and there's no complaint here. Just saying you're missing an opportunity. In the same way that fire, if you did 17 years times $16,000 is $272,000 in lease money, or at current dollars over the next 40 years would be $880,000 we're giving to a leasee. Right, so if you have a $15 million project, 1/15 of that would be spent just on the lease payments. It's the same thing, opportunity cost here. If you have to pay benefits and wages for employees inefficiently, you're losing eventually hundreds of thousands of dollars by not creating the right space. Patty, I've seen your frustration in the building department, so.
For me, I guess I can speak for Conservation, Board of Health, and everyone else who's over there, but for me, it's the paperwork. Storage. We need another cabinet. I guess what we do is, when we get all the paperwork, we put everything into the street file. So under your address, we put everything, conservation letters, building permits, and this is an example. Every building permit I print out is probably 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch thick. So you can imagine it doesn't take long before they're filled. We need another street file cabinet brought in there, and unless we start stacking them, there is no place that we can put them. And we were at capacity now when I have my senior workers trying to file. They can't even get the file folder in the drawers at this point. Forget about filing anything under the W's, because it isn't even happening. I have an accordion folder on my desk that's about this thick of the W's. Because there's nowhere to put the stuff. There's really nowhere to put it. And I think what happens is you get a call and they say, let's say a guy's selling a house and he wants me to give him all the permits for an address. I try to go to the file and pull that stuff out. Well, now they're everywhere because I don't have room to put them in the file. So my 5-minute call turns into a 25-minute search. And that's just one little piece. It's just storage.
It's tamer than usual for you. So that's a good example of the type of efficiency. So someone will call and they'll say, I would like to know more about this, my property. And we have to spend, whether it's going to the fire department in the record storage, or going and looking around the various places that records might be held to answer that question. Right, so that's, if you're only working 16 hours a week, that's quite a bit of time spent looking for things because of the way the space dictates that. So it's not a small thing, but it does address some concerns I've seen on social media, et cetera, of why would you need this space? Like, why would you need such big record storage space? It's to make it efficient. So if you call and you ask a question, you can get that question answered in 10 minutes rather than 2 days. And then everything else that comes in, maybe that's a week, and then you think the government doesn't work anymore. And you're like, well, why would we give you money, if your government doesn't work?
That's why I add that we're also in charge of keeping those legal records intact. We're the keepers of the data, and when you don't know where your data is, you feel like you're not doing your job. So everything needs to be in its place, and do you know what I mean? You feel like you're not only being inefficient, but you're just not being a good gatekeeper for the stuff that you're tasked with protecting, and that
Has to be in a secure place too.
secure, yeah, not.
One,
Yes.
which we don't have.
Yep.
Well, then as the town's population grows, we need more space for more records because this is not a need that's going to go away. It's going to be a continuous need. It's going to grow bigger, and we want the town to grow by at least a little bit. So this is something that we can't keep, looking the other way on. It has to be something we take care of.
Okay, so we've
Could I jump in for a minute?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'd just like to make a comment. Dan and I have been on the board finishing up about 6 years now. And I know I've also served on the committees that had to do with the buildings and so forth. And we've seen 2 attempts to get something passed. We came up in the last one 50 votes short. And just listening to everybody, because it's been the same for 6 years, we are making do. And thinking about it, if with all the things that have been talked about here and the past 6 years, we don't have a building in this town that is being used for what it was designed for. this was built for classroom, not a senior center, not administrative, but it was built as a classroom. Downtown it was a barn, not a fire station. It was a barn that was built. And I personally am saying, I think we had got to stop to the point of making do. Because there's another side of this. As long as we are operating, then people are going to say, well, we're doing fine. So the attitude has got to get out there. As pointed out too, it's not going to go away. It's going to get worse. We're spending good money after bad, renting a fire department. Who ever heard of such a thing? You know, you're renting a fire department. It's been that way for 6 years. So I think, I'm preaching to the choir, but I think one of the big jobs we have got to do on anything we may attempt is to get this kind of word out to the people. Because I know, again, in terms of the town meetings that we've had, for the 2 chances that we had at it, at the town meeting, the hands are for it. When you go to the ballot, you come up short. Well, that's got to be on us, those who are for it, to do a better job to get those 50 people who didn't show up to do that, because there's no question we're all in agreement what we need. We needed all this 6 years ago when I first came on the board. I know because I was on the committee that found out all of these things. We're illegal in many cases. We're not taking care of the vulnerable. For the longest time we didn't have a ramp to allow people getting into the senior center. So that this is just how I feel about it. I just think it's frustrating, and I don't personally. I would, we got to run business, but I think we've got to somehow get that it's time to stop making do.
And this is just going to keep costing us more and more. The longer
Absolutely.
we wait, the more it's going to cost. At
Absolutely.
this point, the last figure that you gave us was figured out to be less than $1.50 a day in increased taxes. That is not a lot of money.
So, I think what I've learned here in the last, and it's more like 7 years, rhetoric doesn't really work around here. It just doesn't. So, momentum does. And one thing we do have, in my opinion, is that as an offshoot for the work that's been done over the last 4 or 5 years relative to space that we're sort of rekindling again justifiably, there has been pretty consistent support for public safety building. That has been first on lots of surveys. That's the most important part of all of this, because we know our town, and if that's the bottom, and trying to get that done is just not going to happen. So I think, identifying that that's already there and that's present, using sort of what is the most popular possible pathway as the forefront for the whole operation, and that would mean, a public safety building, and I'm not making decisions for anybody, I'm just giving my opinion. That would mean a public safety building, which then moves these guys out of here, which allows the seniors who need more space to have more space, and maybe that building has more town office space as well. So that's the sort of thing that I think if we're starting with what's already been supported over the last few surveys and the few, town meetings and votes and all that sort of stuff is really the way, the most successful way we may go through this. Because as much as people have supported the roads and bridges projects and all those sorts of things in town, we haven't paid for them. We've paid for engineering. We're going to pay for the whole thing here, unless our legislator in the back can come up with the money, which thanks for coming tonight, Donnie. But that's the sort of thing, right? We overall really understand that, we are an organized little town that has this new capital planning committee that wants to be able to spend money on a consistent basis on certain things, and that's not possible without, sort of moving forward, and that would be the next thing. So, anyway, that's just my sort of 2 cents. That's not like a catch-all on how to move forward here, but that's just my opinion based on being present for a little while on what might be the most, the best chance for us to sort of take the next step, which is, what we talked about a few weeks ago, which is we need to take some step.
Right.
What's the best chance? What's the best direction to go? And is that it? So that's, that's it.
I have another question.
Of course.
A couple of you spoke about, not being in compliance with Massachusetts laws. So I'm just wondering, is there any sort of grants or government assistance when there are small towns who can't manage to help bring our fire department and our police department into compliance?
So
You probably looked at it already.
I have some data. So
Sure you have.
been meeting with people who provide these types of grants. So the primary driver of rural development is the USDA, Department of Agriculture, believe it or not. They're very invested in keeping rural towns rural in this particular grant program. So no one wants to hear this, but Hubbardston's too affluent for the grant side of it, which would be assistance for the actual building. But they do allow low interest, long-term loans, which would be something that would help us quite a bit. So they will allow you to borrow for 40 years at market rate, which is right now between 3 and 4, rather than going out to bid and being subject to a 30-year note at X. So if you did, the biggest thing that's been suggested in the last year, which is the big municipal building, under regular borrowing it would be about $550 on the average tax bill annually, average tax bill being $250,000 home. If you put it into a 40-year note at 4%, you'd be looking more at $450. If you did 10 million, which is the lower end of this side, with a 40-year note at 3%, you're looking at about 300 per household. So it's a moving target in terms of how much it's going to cost. We nail those numbers down, but you're looking at no less than $300 excluded debt for a household of $250,000 on value for any project we're looking at.
Which unfortunately, in any way, shape, and form, everybody around here considers an override. So that's regardless of whether you call it a debt exclusion, because of the term, because if it's 20, 30, or 40 years. And I agree, it's hard to say, okay, yeah, it's a debt exclusion, but it's really an override because I'm going to be dead by the time it's, that's the sort of thing. So I get the argument, without a doubt. Even though the spirit of the argument is, no, this is not to try to raise everybody taxes to do extra things. It's really just to do one thing. So that's it, but it's got that connotation. So it's again, it just sort of brings me back to, because that is just a reality and has been the reality for decades here. To use the data that we have recently, which is support for something, which is public safety that everybody appreciates around here. Not that they don't appreciate everything, but we've just found out that has pinned at the top of the list recently. So to use that as a stepping stone seems like that may have the best chance for success.
Just some other comments I've gotten from residents. Some residents want to know what else. So if there's a building up here, what happens to everyone who remains? What happens to the fire station, let's say? Or they really want the answers to those questions in order to make a decision. And I hear a lot that there's never been a unified effort. So although there's been passion for this project or that, there hasn't been, okay, this is the plan. And they said, so why do anything? Just keep it the same. But lastly, if the plan is to do nothing, which wouldn't be my recommendation, it would be good to have that made decision so that we could invest money in this building, etc., in the capital plan. Very hesitant to put any money in this building or any of the buildings when this question continues to loom. So either put it away or do something about it.
And that's the thing too, is it's always been tricky for us because we've had the discussion many times over the years where, we really need a dump truck, but you know what? We're going for like the last 100,000 for this roads thing, so let's hold off on that. So this is just another thing that comes in there where it's like, you know what? We're gonna do. We don't want the voters to have to do this too. So it's hard to find the right spot to put a lot of these things in there. Never mind a big one like this. So that's much more than half the battle is picking the right place to appropriately sort of set it into people's minds. Okay, well, this has been great. It is, so I'm just glad we don't ignore this it's not over, and specifically not right now. So if anybody has anything else they want to sort of add to the discussion anyway, please feel free. We do have a meeting we're going to be continuing on with after this, so just let us know if you want to keep talking about it. If not, it'll definitely be on our agenda upcoming. Deb?
So I did want to just, Ryan brought up the question about people want to know what else. Like for instance, the fire department. If the fire department were to move into a brand new building, what are they going to do with that building? They feel like, well, we have a building. Why do we need municipal space if we have a fire department that's no longer in the fire building? So can't we use that? Well, if they realized how much it would really cost to upgrade that super old building, instead of putting it into a little more space in a municipal building, I think they would understand that that's, spending, as you said, yeah, exactly, good money after that, because there's no sense to upgrading a 70-year-old building and putting $200,000 into it when you could get brand new space for less.
So there's some of the things, I've been on the town center committee, this is another representative in the back, Brett here tonight, that we've talked about, that's a question that's gonna come up, and what do we do with that? Do we integrate it into the town center project? It's gonna come in a little meandering pathway that goes there and take the building down because it's not necessary and shouldn't be up anyway. That's the sort of thing, but those are good answers, right? So those are the things that and as much as it's a good answer, it shows people who are skeptical and cynical of the process that there are people who are thinking about all these scenarios too, which is just as important. So
They just want an answer to their questions
agreed.
that they come up with.
Yeah, agreed.
So that would be, one of the possibilities to present would be to, tear down the building.
Yep.
And then that land, which is town owned, right?
Yep.
Would
Was it big enough for a house lot?
go
Maybe
up
you
for
could
sale.
sell it?
It would go for sale. So that's the point.
I mean,
Is that
we
we
didn't know
could
this.
say, hey, we thought of this, and this. We don't know what's going to happen, but we've got these different options that will be possible once the process starts.
And maybe right on Main Street, we'd get a business that might want to come in and have, a decent amount of space in there. You just don't,
Right.
that would be ideal.
Anybody else?
If they're watching, we're open and willing to hear
Yes, please
how they'd
come
like to
to
invest
us.
in our
Via Facebook tonight, correct. Okay, well, we're going to move on. If there's nothing else, final call? No? Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining the discussion here, taking time out.
Oh, support.
I was just checking in, the building stuff, see what the plan is.
That's our plan. We're trying. Night.
Energy's a big one too. We were doing schools. It really costs so much less to operate a brand new building, twice this size, with the energy stuff. That was another big one to meet everybody with
Huh.
meetings. And the selling was, they don't want you to build something new and keep the old building. They want that stuff going. Because if you repurpose it for another town thing, we were getting that same excuse. Why do you need a new one if you're just gonna? Those were the things that our last school came up with.
So right, and you want to just say, and I don't want to say, but it's easy to sort of potentially make the threat that, well, when the building falls down, we're going to have to do something about it. It's the worst thing to say,
You
right?
don't want to say it as a selectman either.
No, I know, of course, and I did. But no, but
I
but
think
you
I
don't.
have
But you
before,
don't.
just-
I know, but you don't mean it. But still, that's like you just want to just sort of get it to a point where you don't have to even think that needs to be a scenario that comes
How
up.
close was it last time?
50 votes, we came up short.
And the time before it was a lot more, right?
Yeah.
And just to add one final thing is it became very clear, and we talked about this during our last meeting, that you have a much better chance if you've got a solid design versus just a number. No question, because we tried it without we didn't want to, but we tried it without a design and with a number, and the questions are innumerable. So if you've got a design, you've got a group that can speak to why certain things are in there, why certain things aren't, how it went from X square feet to this to this to this during the 4 iterations that it came in there. It's unbelievably more acceptable to people than it is if you just sort of go in blind with give us $3 million.
What's the picture of the one that was on Facebook for this meeting? Was that the old one they did?
No.
So there was a recalculation of cost based off 3 scenarios. One being
The picture of the building?
all 3 of these interested parties moving up the street,
Okay.
or just public safety town hall, or just public safety. Kind of
Recent.
3 estimates.
That was well beyond the stuff you'd seen before.
It sounds like they'd be happy.
They're cool. I mean, that's what I mean, and that was
I mean, they given this space, I think they'd be tickled.
agreed. So that's why. I mean, that's a big step.
I
So
remember that was the original driver like 5
Yes.
years ago, was
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah, well, and then that had to do with $500,000 grant too, so there's,
Yeah.
there's stuff there that, you know.
Is that where you would put it, in that lot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
'cause
what it
the
was for.
septic's- Everything's there, right?
everything's
They
there.
do the septic.
Well's already in, septic, no,
Yeah.
septic location's there, the actual, we didn't install it because
Yeah.
it could spoil, but the well's in, the roads are in, and all the borings are done, all
Yeah.
the geotechnical investigation, all the stuff to know.
Ready to go.
Yeah,
Yeah, Senator Brewer got this.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I just got
And
in.
that's what it was for, Don.
Yeah, it was right before
Yeah.
Right.
he got out and I got in. That was.
okay, we good?
Anything you need, you good? I got
Yeah,
Well, I mean-
are you kidding me?
Besides
Yeah.
sending
Oh,
me-
it's
Okay.
simple, you said make it like I had his love.
Yeah, that was his case. No, but thanks for coming down, I appreciate it.
Yeah, just call me. I'm real. I
Thank you,
good with
everybody.
the
All right, thanks,
USDA
Deb.
stuff too. So if you need help with them, they're really good.
Yeah, this week with Landon, I just kinda wanna know what the
Landon?
plan
Yeah,
is,
he's crazy.
so.
He's a great, great guy.
RCAP too, I didn't mention it, but they do water sewer solutions in conjunction with USDA, so if we had a vision, there's opportunities.
The federal government used to do these grants years ago for police stations and public safety buildings. They had a ton of money, but then they stopped. It was a long time ago. But it'd be nice if they did it again.
Yep.
I don't know if Trump's his infrastructure thing includes that, or if that's just roads, or
Don't know.
it'd be nice if it did.
Don't call.
Yeah, call me. I got a cell phone. Not. Call me if you need me.
Okay, thanks,
Hey,
Alan.
thank you.
We'll
See
see
ya.
ya. Okay. All right, thanks for facilitating that, Ryan. And for everybody to show up. The special town meeting warrants next, so we've got a review.
So I have a draft for you. You'll notice Article 1, this was put in your packets today, so it's relatively new, but Article 1 looks very similar to Article 1 from the last special town meeting. So this would be adjusting certain line items in order to meet the $14,293 increase as a result of other towns voting for the increased school assessment.
So the mechanics of that are gonna be just like the last time, whereas each of those items by the moderator goes over, and if there's a hold, somebody says hold, if not, it goes through, and then the final number gets voted upon?
So I would envision if the board wants it, me just giving an overview, a
Yeah.
brief overview of here's why we have to change things and here's why these changes make sense.
Yeah.
And then line by line vote
Sounds good.
based off the recommendations of the board and the finance committee.
Okay.
And then we received no other articles.
I could probably jump in there though. We just had I know this was something we were gonna talk about anyway. We had our town center committee meeting last Thursday. 7 of the 8 members came. It was a good meeting. It was we probably hadn't had one in 3 or 4 months. I usually give them a roads and bridge and all that sort of stuff update, complete streets and all the other things, just so they have, it's kind of the committee that gets asked questions about stuff like that. But we did talk about how much money is left to finish the town center design, and I had asked TEC leading up to the meeting to give me an update on where the funds were through Ryan. You've seen all that obviously, because that came, some of it from you, and then also from Travis to give an update on roads and a few other things. So we actually took some action. So we talked about it for a while, and that was, the remaining, it was originally just gonna be around 70 or 80 grand was gonna be the sort of final ask of the town center committee recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to get to the final amount. But if you'll recall, when the DOT moved the completion of the town center project from High Street to the other side of the rec to be able to do 68 North with the funds, that added about 50 grand or so in design costs because of, whatever, all the design costs that have to do with the sidewalk and drainage and everything else. In addition to that, because there were some comments, which is completely normal, on the 25% design that was submitted for the entire town center project, that added another $15,000 to $20,000 in additional costs that will happen for design to do some landscape architecture, some other sort of pieces and parts to it. So it makes the final ask, which would be around $150,000. So the town center committee kicked it around a bit on what the best way to do it. We've always been like, let's go, momentum, but let's not, try to go crazy. And similar to what I was talking about earlier with, the townspeople don't want to be inundated with additional requests for money and all that. but don't stop the momentum. And so what we did is we sort of calculated the time frame between the 25% design, which is complete, the hearing, which is a public hearing that's going to be taking place in November probably, which is part of the process, and then a 75% design and comment period and all that. We felt as though that to break it into $75,000 for an ask for this town meeting, and then another $75,000 at annual town meeting in June, would still keep the momentum going, keep TEC being able to move with their design portion for it, and stay within any sort of time frame that our project may get fit in within the DOT's, budget process for actually doing our work, which again isn't for a few years now, but in the event that we get lucky and somebody else falls out, we'd always want to be able to take that slot. So we felt as though all those things made it such that, and we voted how we've done in the past, which was unanimous is what the result was, but to add an article based on an agreeable terminology drafted by Ryan to ask for, at this town meeting, the special town meeting, $75,000 towards the remainder of the town center design. So that was an article that was recommended by the town center committee to the select board. So that's what I'm reporting back there. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that or what, but that's what we came up with.
So that would be on this?
That would be on this. And part of the point too was not to say, again, because there's literally been 0 people against this project ever. But the point was on purpose not to say, let's just get the whole 150, because again, this town meeting was not supposed to happen, the special town meeting. So there's just, it would, even though it wouldn't be, to feel like it's sliding the rest of the amount in there with not that many people showing up, just felt a little disingenuous and unnecessary and all that sort of stuff. So we have a complete justification for the ask, why we're asking for it, why it's better to maybe break it up a little bit and wait till we have free cash certification next year, all those other things. And many factors come into why not just to do it all at once, but to keep the momentum going so that we can keep the project going. So anyway, that's that.
So we need a motion to add that?
I don't know. Do you want to do write it up first and then, or do you want us to? What do you want?
So Article 2 and 3 up there are just placeholders. You can't do a lot of financial stuff on a special town meeting. It has to go to annual town meeting based off Mass General Law. You can update some bylaws. There's other things you can do in special town meetings, but again, not great to have it in a smaller town meeting. For this type of small capital purchase or smallish capital investment, that's what the article would look like. Depending on where you wanted to transfer it from, you could do stabilization, municipal cap stabilization, or free cash.
They're saying we couldn't do that.
Correct.
Okay.
And the way
so he's asked, you want me to draft it, that's what it would look like. So if you wanted to add it and then approve this warrant, contingent on those changes, that can be done.
Well, we did it last time from stabilization, I think, right? From the town savings account. Did we do it from stabilization?
The last one was, yes.
I think so. I mean, it seemed logical at the time, and this is just an extension of that. So, unless anyone has an issue with using the same process we did last time, at least it's consistent.
Do you think people will think it's a sneaky way of slipping it through?
So we thought of that.
I mean, I'm just thinking the comments you're gonna get from it,
So we thought of that, and the fallback is that it can still be requested from the annual town meeting, that amount, and I think that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. If there had been any ill will towards it at all, then we don't think we would even consider it. But here it's like, look, if anyone's actually listening and they hear, you know what, we look, the signs are starting to go up for 68 North. The reason we're able to do that is because we had to add another 50 grand to this one. We need the money now, and here we're thinking about doing it now to keep the momentum going. So we just and then there was, 7 of us in the room who talked about this for most of the meeting, trying to figure out if it was the right thing to do. And the consensus for the people who had been closest to it were all like, look, this does not feel like much of a reach. So I don't know, but that's what we're discussing here. So.
To be the devil's advocate for a moment, assuming it is put on there, the way you were just describing it to us, because the other 75 would be the next annual town meeting. If you get a negative response,
Yeah.
that could also carry over back to the annual if you put it back on them again.
I just don't think
You
so on
know?
this project. I just, if there happened to be a contingent on this, a very small percentage of the people who are gonna be there overall at special town meeting versus annual town meeting, I still think that group, if they just were completely against the project, starting now, even though nobody has been for 3 years, by the time it gets to annual town meeting, every other vote that we've had up till now, I just don't think there'd be this like ill will built up against it. It doesn't feel like
What are
that's
the details of the project? What exactly are we trying to do?
the town center project.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot.
Nutshell it for me.
Okay, nutshell. 0.4 miles
Yeah.
from Williamsville High Street originally, which is now extended to the other side of the rec field based
Mhm.
on Mass DOT recommendation, so that they have enough money to do 68 North on their nickel. They added the design, not the construction of it, but the design of the additional to the other side of the rec field, and meaning to be part of the town center project.
Sidewalks.
So instead of 0.4, it's like 0.6 miles now. 'Cause they extended it a bit. So sidewalks, right? all
Parking
that.
spaces.
So there's parking spaces. It'd be great if I had a design to show you. But basically, it's a full reconstruction of the entire, all the way to Elm Street and Brigham Road. So that's where. So from where 68 South started and where 68 North will begin, it's connecting the two. But it includes dual-use sidewalks, which are extra wide, 10 feet wide, to be used on one side of the street because of certain considerations. Granite curbing, parking spaces all the way around there. Retaining walls in certain places in areas where the earth is collapsing in currently, like along the edges of Brigham there, to make the sight lines better, to take some poles out of the way, pulling all the existing signs out of there because there's something like 38 signs on Main Street, and putting the ones that you actually need. We went through a bunch of different ideas on what to do at crosswalks. So putting the crosswalks in a few locations. We had some public hearings on it of where they should be. There's not many crosswalks, but they're in the right spot, and then they have those, not the flashers all the time. Okay. But the ones that, if you walk up there, you walk up to it and you press the button, it goes sort of crazy on the flashers so that people actually see it, but it's not something that they see all the time, so they're not going to pay attention to it. It's just sort of that thing that sort of comes up. ADA compliance all over the place. A bike lane, because that's part of it. Part of it getting the funding, if you look on the right side of the left picture over there, to get funding from the state for this sort of thing, is you have to have bike lanes that come through, which comes on the right side. You see the little bike
Yep.
thing there. And then sort of wider crossings. And then the reason we did the Elm Street sidewalk last year with complete streets was to tie into the sidewalk system that would then come up through here. And then our next complete streets would be another sidewalk on High Street to tie into what we're going to finish off here with the sidewalk that comes on the town center project as well. So it's all sort of a master plan on how it's coming. But I mean, it's not anything fancy. There's no fancy crazy lighting in there that's going to add extra cost. And we're actually putting conduit in the sidewalks for future considerations for lighting, because it's much easier to do that now than for later. And all those discussions. And then we happen to have a really, really fantastically wide existing town center. A lot of places don't have that, so we can fit everything we need to without having to go into taking people's lands, which is always a complicated thing, or taking trees down. We don't have to do all that sort of stuff. So we can fit it all within there with having appropriate lane widths and all that other stuff. So, I guess that's a nutshell. And keeping parking away from the school where it's unsafe, doing considerations like that to the best of our ability, to sort of clean things up there, so that people aren't sort of just haphazardly going there. We're making it so that in the event that they would actually want to park, they have to literally stop in the middle of the road, which maybe you do once, but you don't do a second time.
Dan, just for clarity purposes for me, because I was just talking to Pat about this, our expense is the design of it,
That's it.
correct? And then the project goes on, the state picks it up.
The state picks the whole project.
Yeah.
The state picks the oversight
I
of
don't
the
know if
project.
Chris knew that or not.
Yeah.
because- okay.
So it's about $3 million, $3.5. We've spent 225 so far, in the neighborhood of 225. That right? 208 maybe, something like that. And the remaining amount was always going to be around 300, but now it's a little bit more because they extended the project and we had some comments on one of the designs. So to get it to the final amount, so that they pick up the fee, which they've already approved the project. So we've had some hearings at the DCPO, or what's it called, something like that. MPO, Montechusett Planning.
That's what we attended, you and I went.
These guys went, so the project got approved, so they actually have a
Yeah.
project number for it and all that, it's in the docket to be completed, we just need to complete the design for them to actually do it,
Okay.
yeah. So, okay, yeah, no, that was just, so I don't know, if we're in favor of that, or not, this
I'll make a motion to add that to the 75,000 for the town center committee.
On that one, okay.
What's
I'll
the
s- I'll second the
design?
motion. I'll second the motion.
Further discussion? Discussion?
No discussion.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll make that Article 2.
Article 2,
Did you have a placeholder for another thing too, or is that just up there?
just in case,
Is there something else?
nothing came up today in terms of capital, I think people are comfortable waiting until the annual town meeting, so it looks like it'll be those 2 articles. If you want to,
Well, when's the deadline to get an article?
you haven't set one, so you could close it tonight if you want to, or keep it open, but we do have to post it 14 days prior to the 21st, which is the 7th, and your next meeting is on the 7th, so it would have to be approved,
And close them.
or have another meeting.
Why don't we just close it?
I'm fine with closing it unless somebody wants it open.
What are your thoughts?
It was, people were given an ample amount of time to submit things, a couple people asked some questions, but there's nothing, there's not a lot to do in a fall town meeting, except for.
Right, I mean, it's not a meeting we were planning to have anyways, right? And
Right.
it's been posted out there and people had the opportunity to put things on it if they wanted, so I say we just close it.
Okay,
Make
great.
a motion to close the warrant.
Second the motion?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nice.
So this will be, the articles will be kept generic, so from available funds, 75,000 from available funds, and then made available for you to sign, and then we'll post it within the requirement times. And then at the next meeting on the 7th, you'll have a chance to discuss recommendations and other things based off input from the finance committee, which will then be given a town meeting. So just real briefly, my recommendation to the finance committee for the budget changes from this last special town meeting would be to eliminate the HR consulting line item. Again, we have to come up with $14,293. So this is my current recommendation to the finance committee, which then they will take up and debate and then bring back to you for your recommendation or not. So eliminate HR consulting, $4,000. Just moving down the line items. Reduce the finance committee reserve fund. This is the emergency, the annual emergency fund. So if we need extra money, we go to this fund. If it's not used, it generates the free cash for our capital. Reducing that by $5,000. Most people try and get around 0.5% of their operating budget. For us, that would be
Third.
45,000. So this is moving us in that other direction, but we need to make cuts. Rutland Regional Dispatch. I'm just suggesting that we cut this by $560. It's a small cut. I do think eventually this line item will get down to $124,000. They just got a grant, as you'll see in my town administrative report. So we'll be able to meet this funding. I don't want to drop it too low because I don't want the increase next year to be gigantic. But I think we can, if we had to, we could cut another couple thousand out of this and still be okay this year. But I'm comfortable dropping it down there based off of approval from the boards. This planning board assistant line, so this was originally 14,000, 14 hours, not 14,000, brought up to 18 hours, and then this would drop that down, so we'd lose some planning board assistant hours down to 16. I have been speaking with this employee about that this entire process, so this is not a shock. But we'll be losing some employee hours here at Town Hall. Road maintenance money, cutting the additional increase, so this would be level funded from FY19, so this would all but eliminate extra culvert work, put more pressure on our Chapter 90 funds.
I hate cutting any more from that. because we're trying to go in one direction, and that seems to be always the one that gets it, you know? I don't know, it's just my feeling.
I agree.
I don't disagree. Just gotta find it somewhere. The, and then general highway is for building repair. Eventually this will come back at us in a form of a capital plan, I would say. And that does equal out to $14,293, which levels us off at a 3.07% increase from last year at $9.3 million budget.
So let's just say next year, because we're no longer going to have be the town that has their assessment done, obviously with Quabbin. There's no guarantees, but it's likely that we're going to be in a less crappy scenario than we were this year. So are our first, orders of business to sort of add money back in going to be these final cuts? Do you think? I mean, would that be the, sort of Pat's point is, it's oftentimes, you make cuts and then you sort of forget, I made the cuts and you move from year to year. I mean, doesn't it feel like that's something we should do?
Well, a couple comments if you indulge me. So
Yeah.
the staff will always work with the resources you give them, so it'll always feel to people like that wasn't a big deal. You just cut that money. It's hard for the average resident to see the difference between 2 hours in the planning board or say $3,000 worth of culvert work. So people get used to it. I just want to emphasize that the staff always does their job, but it doesn't mean that got easier or that it wasn't painful. They're just not going to complain about it because we're professionals. The second part of my comment is no, that wouldn't be. My recommendation would be that we are using $100,000 in free cash and we're facing a very significant long-term deficit. So my recommendation to this board that this would be permanent. In terms of, and I agree what you're talking about with our year, but our years, the worst years tend to be high. Our good years tend to be still high, just not as high. So I'm predicting 4 to 5% next year from Quabbin. If you look at other towns, Hardwick had a reduction in assessment. Barry was at 1.5%. We're still going to be 4 or 5%. We're never going to quote unquote win. Even last year when we didn't have a lot of budget difficulties, we were at 5%. So this year we end up at 6.31. So that's about $60,000 difference in increased budget. It's a really long answer, but it's not going to be my recommendation. I think these cuts will be permanent. That free cash has to come out of the budget. The economy's not going to stay this way forever. We're using $60,000 in capital stabilization to fund the roof project, and now $75,000 to run the town center. Both are worthy projects, but now our savings aren't where they were. If you're using one-time revenues and cutting into your savings, you're creating a situation where if we do get our downturn, we're not going to be able to cover. So those would be the first places I put money. Take away the free cash, add back to our savings.
Right.
Not the answer, I can tell that everyone was hoping.
No, it's fine. It's a good answer.
Makes sense.
Just asking.
It's the same presentation that I gave in front of the town based off recommendations from the finance committee and board at the special town meeting. It's not a doomsday scenario that we painted. It's you can't sustain this level of increase forever. So eventually, these service reductions become permanent until you can't do it anymore, and then you're cutting entire departments in some cases.
Well, I mean, last year, we hired another firefighter full-time, because we had the money. But just because we had the money that year, doesn't mean we have it every year. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of things we need to look at.
Sure.
Across the board. You keep increasing departments. Yeah, when time is good, it's fine, you can afford that. And no one wants to see cuts, but at some point, you're gonna have to, in order to survive. I mean, nobody wants to hear that, but that's my opinion.
I agree with you, and I think the argument against some, not all of those, but some of those scenarios is some of those additions are just to get it to where it should have been in the first place. You know what I mean? Not all of them.
Yeah, but I think you're gonna hear that on
maybe
on everything.
Yeah, right.
I mean, nobody wants to hear anything like that, but at some point, if you can't sustain what you have, something's got to change one way or the other. Either do an override and adjust, or you got to make some big adjustments. That's my opinion.
I agree. At some point, decisions gonna have to be made. Either there's gonna have to be additional revenue that comes into town, and that's gonna come with some consequences, or it's gonna be an override, which is additional revenue, or there's gonna be a cut that people won't tolerate. But to say why is it this year, it's not true. It's been building for a long time.
Oh, no,
So that's why
exactly.
we're trying to reduce those one-time costs, trying to create these safety nets for you in order to make sure that you survive, and you can plug a year if you have to figure something out, like a solution like that.
Okay. All right, moving on. All right, so they're at the fuel efficient vehicle policy, which is another policy that we are periodically reviewing. Said with a question mark?
This one is new. And it's new because it is required under the Green Communities grant that we keep. So we're really close to that. I know we keep saying we're gonna do these things, but we're getting closer. So the school committee is looking at this for the regional school district, and then this is required at the town level. So what this is saying is that the board and the town is committing to buying fuel efficient vehicles whenever they can. The good news for Hubbardston in terms of this is almost none of our vehicles qualify for needing fuel efficiency. So the only three that might qualify, that might not be exempt, are the two chief vehicles and the DPW vehicle. However, it's my opinion, and working with our regional planners, that those could also be exempted as well. So this might have zero impact. What would happen if one of those needed to be fuel efficient would probably add $5,000 to $10,000 of cost in the capital plan. So instead of getting a cruiser, well, it wouldn't be a cruiser, but a chief's vehicle that was, say, $40,000, you'd be looking at $50,000 to try and make it hybrid or fuel efficient. But this isn't for dump trucks and for police cruisers, and all those things are exempted under these statutes. So this policy has very minimal impact on Hubbardston. Then why would we pass it? The reason we're passing it is to qualify as a green community. Green community offers us some grant monies. The initial grant money should be upwards of $150,000 to do capital projects, to include stuff at the schools.
So a motion to accept it, is that what you're recommending?
I'm recommending this be approved
Okay.
and adopted by the board.
What is the, what is the criteria for a vehicle to be exempt? I mean, I think it says that we have the ability to say that a vehicle should be exempt from this
Yes.
particular
So you
policy. I mean, obviously there's a limit on the size of the vehicle. I saw that 8,500 pounds, but didn't it say somewhere where it says basically any vehicle that we feel should be exempt from this policy, regardless of it qualifies under the limitations of the weight, we can exempt from it?
So that was my first question. It's a good one. We can exempt anything we want, but you have to meet criteria 4 of the Green Communities Division guidance, which spells out the fuel efficiency requirements that are needed in order to qualify as a green community, access to grants. So it's stick and carrot. They're trying to get us to be more fuel efficient and offering us grants in order to do that. So we could not do this policy at any time. It doesn't bind us to anything, but we would lose
Right.
access to grant money.
So it sounds like a no-brainer.
I'll make a motion then, to approve the fuel efficient vehicle policy as presented.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, we've got select board goals, which we've been kicking around here for a month or two. Ryan, you consolidated them for us, and we had some time to take a look at them, correct?
Yes. This is based off a couple rounds of conversations. I sent them to you, tried to make them more concise and get rid of some of the ones that were no longer needed, focus on some stuff that we can get done.
I didn't have any further comments
No, I will.
that I didn't already relay. Anybody else have anything else they want to say about them?
It's everything I supported. Yep. Did you get a chance to see them?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we act on them?
I'll make a motion to accept the Board of Selectmen goals as presented.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes?
Aye.
Alrighty. Okay, Ryan, you're up. TA report.
cut out the redundancies. Budget update was pretty thorough during the special town meeting, no changes there. So the board is prioritizing, made a goal, meeting with other Quabbin towns in order to address some of these assessment inequalities we keep talking about. OCAM has invited the board to attend their October 28th meeting. I know that coordinating with the chairman that Dan can make it that night. It'd be great if other members could make it. If you can make it, and there's gonna be 3 of you, just let me know so we can help you post a meeting.
October 28th?
This would be in OCAM, October 28th.
What day is that?
It's a Monday.
It's a
It's an
Monday?
off Monday for us, so a week after the town meeting. And that would be to
Yeah,
talk to
you
them
going to
about
I am, but
Okay.
changes. So moving on, the economic
Wait a
development.
minute, can I just ask you, what's the goal of that meeting? To talk to who about changes?
So during the budget process, it was brought up here in the finance committee to talk about the assessment, the way the assessment formula is done. So we have the statutory assessment versus the population assessment, for lack of a better description. We would benefit from a change because of the way that the assessments fluctuate and create these crisis years.
that's why we got screwed this
Isn't the
year.
assessment handed down from the state?
No, this is the town assessment, it's a separate assessment. So this is actually a valuation of Hubbardston and our own assessment, which then ties into how much money we have to how much each student would be worth and that sort of thing for each. So it's a separate assessment than that.
So real briefly, the state gives, this is the money that the state gives,
Mhm.
and then this is the money that you have to pay. It's
Right.
usually a little bit above that, and then Quabbin pays here, which is what most people want, is above minimum. So the difference between the state and the minimum, or what Quabbin pays, is the assessment. So that is a portion to the towns based off of the statutory assessment, which takes combined assessment value plus population. If you went purely population, that assessment formula would change and wouldn't take into account every 3 years evaluation, which causes these spikes in assessment from town to town.
And the problem is the regional agreement would have to get changed between the 5 towns because they're not
Right.
in alignment right now, and that's what we're trying to start the conversation to do. Do you know what time that meeting's at? I'm just adding it to my.
I believe it's 6:30, but I will make sure.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so the Economic Development Committee hosted some area businesses, some Hubbardston businesses at a meet and greet at the Pinecrest Lodge last Friday. I was able to attend. It was pretty well attended. We had about 15 people show up from different businesses, some I'd never heard of, and they were communicating with each other and talking about, some good things about being a business and some bad things about being a business in Hubbardston. I was able to share the board's message about wanting to create a business-friendly environment, and they're planning on having more of these meetings in the future. So that was a good thing. I was happy to see that going. The Economic Development Committee put a lot of time into that. Center School roof. I had a meeting with the school officials today. Just take out all my notes. Here are my notes. This is a big project, Center School roof. Hopefully not multi-million, but definitely more than $1 million project to replace the roof. We are working with Pink & Company as our OPM. The OPM is given to you by the MSBA. They will help us get an architect, which has to be selected from the MSBA's list, and we will be working on contracts. Those will be done by the school committee. We just manage the money and are participatory in the process. So I'm a member of the building committee. They are asking that one of the Board of Selectmen members, I don't want to throw Jeff under the bus, but the meetings will be during the day, so usually you volunteer for that type of thing. But
Well, no, I was gonna ask, but, because I also know, Dan's very much into the school projects too, but that being the case, I'd be happy to do it, but.
So this would be bi-weekly to monthly meeting, probably Wednesdays, 9 o'clock or so here, because we're hosting the project with the OPM and then eventually the architect. So this is to do the feasibility study.
The building, they were like a school, one of us on there, but it's during the day, so, as I
Oh.
said, Cause I thought maybe you might want to be on it, but the meetings will be during the day, so I'd be happy to do it, but I know this is an area you're also interested in.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to do it during the day, I don't think so.
I'll be happy to do it then.
It'd be
So
great.
that should be voted by the, so I'm a
Oh, okay.
representative based off of the way the MSBA
Oh.
is, we need a board member as well.
Unless it's Chris or Pat, this is anything you guys can do?
It's you, Jeff.
You got
It's
it,
all
Jeff.
you.
Okay.
Thank you for
Somebody
volunteering.
make a motion quickly.
I make a motion that Jeff be on the committee for the MSBA roof project.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Thanks, Jeff.
It's gonna be a good one. We do think it'll cost feasibility study less than we asked for at town meeting, which helps kind of restore some of the money we took out of the stabilization fund.
Okay.
Infrastructure update. I went down to the Ragged Hill Bridge project last week with Travis. We met with TC, who's engineering that. It's all state money, state grant. What they're doing for residents who are interested is the sides of the bridges were crumbling, some of that concrete, so they're making that solid again. Repairing that, they are not adding or subtracting from the roadway, just making this bridge last significantly longer. Part of the small bridge program, and then Williamsville Road will also be done, started next week. Both projects will be done before Thanksgiving. Really trying to limit the impact on traffic while making sure we're focusing on safety. Community Compact Grant, I applied for that last week. This is the best practice grant. I'm looking to revamp our human resource policies. They're going to create a new handbook with me, make sure that we're limiting that employee liability and focusing on employee retention. I went on a very cool tour last week of Country Hen. Bob hosted me, took me around Country Hen, very cool. I'm
It's incredible.
a farmer in a different life, so I was very fascinated by it.
Did you come out with any eggs?
I did get half a dozen.
Yeah.
Well under the $50 threshold.
Gotcha.
But he showed me that the farm, I was shocked that there's over 100,000 chickens on that
Yeah.
facility. You wouldn't be able to tell
The-
until you go in there and the chickens scare the crap out of you because they're all staring at you. I posted some pictures on social media.
Yeah, saw those.
And one thing I did want to mention that he mentioned is that they did move their what they call egg processing from Hubbardston to Pennsylvania, which is causing some residents some concern that Country Hen's leaving town. So what left town was the washing and the packaging of eggs, not the chickens. They did just put many millions of dollars into expanding their barns. They're not planning on going anywhere, but they did move that side of it, which was a couple employees and just a little bit of work. A lot of bit of work to Pennsylvania. So just wanted to put that out there for anyone who's worried about that. Country Hen is staying in Hubbardston. And then I'd like to recognize our dispatch director, Michael Moriarty, who secured a state 911 development grant for $82,150. This was part of adding a community to our regional agreement. That pretty much pays for his salary, which means it's a one-time introduction, so we will gain some money from that in free cash, but it will not be realized as a long-term savings. But good job securing that and saving us some money. We get about 15% to a quarter of that back to the town of Hubbardston. And then just some topics coming up. Working on the capital plan pretty heavily with the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. They're very energized and engaged. That's great. You'll be seeing some financial forecasting from me. Both of those updates will be coming in December.
I actually spoke to the chair last night at a soccer game, so he's looking forward to getting re-engaged back into the town stuff.
Michael Stoddard
Mike
is the chairman.
Stotter's the chair.
So he'll be coming at you. And then we've already sent out the department capital budget requests, getting a lot of good feedback from the departments. So we'll be well ahead of where we were last year.
Okay. All right.
Quick one question, for me, on this, MSBA committee. Are they meeting this Wednesday, or?
We believe the second will be the first meeting, so
October
a
2nd.
week from Wednesday.
Okay.
But they'll send you out, they'll add you to the.
They will, okay,
issue.
fine. Thank you.
And they're basically coming out and introducing themselves in the process, answering our questions.
Okay, we've got a couple more policies here. We've got the town identification badges and the ADA grievance policy to review.
So the first one, the town ID badges, we have a branding printer to issue town badges. This is important because people go on people's land and need to know who's in their private space.
Do we get badges?
We're not on the list. We weren't, at least when I read it, we
You
weren't.
can add yourself.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's
You can
all
have my badge.
right. No,
We'll get you one if you
no,
like.
I don't.
So I'm completely fine with you taking a look at. Well, obviously I'm fine with it. You're the bosses, but taking a look at this for another till the next meeting to make sure that the right people are on here, or debate it, or however you want to move forward. This can definitely come back. It is an important policy.
Yeah, would you mind?
So I would suggest just taking a look at who's allowed to have badges, making sure you're comfortable with everybody.
Yep.
If they still need it, in your opinion, and
These are basically ID badges with a picture.
yes,
Okay.
definitely important to have, but I'm not sure that everybody needs one. So just it would be good to comb through the list.
Okay, we'll do.
If I'm knocking at your door, it's a real problem. So I'm not sure I need one.
Okay.
Might not be true. All right, so the ADA policy. This was recently passed. It's just the next one on the list. I'm recommending no change to here. So this, you heard Bob Hatch talk about it tonight. If someone has an ADA complaint, how they file it with the town through me with an ADA coordinator. Last time you adopted this was in March. So if you just want to re-review it and approve it, that would be perfectly fine.
So we're gonna table it until
No, I think we can look at this one. I mean.
now? Okay. By the time you're at home, so. Let's see. Problem. I'll make a motion then that we accept the ADA grievance policy.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Okay. So we've got some minutes here. We've got one regular session and 3 executive session, which we'll do roll call for. So our first one is September 9th, 2019. Anyone got that in front of them?
I have it.
I wasn't there.
That was our open meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. Make a motion to accept the minutes of the September 9th, 2019 Board of Selectmen meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Abstain?
Please continue.
Yep.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the executive session meeting on January 22nd, 2019.
Okay, I don't have that in front of me.
Couldn't find it.
It was.
Minutes to approve, let me see.
Found the February 4th one.
Do you have January 22nd over there?
I don't have it.
So they're in the folder from the last meeting.
Right.
So we can close executive session, so we can bring those back again.
Alright, you mind? Just so we're doing it correctly. Okay.
So we'll pass on
Yeah,
this.
we'll just
Okay.
pass on those, that's fine.
Okay.
So just a reminder, the board voted in executive session last time
Yep.
to allow those to be released, and now they're
Mhm.
to be published.
Sounds good. This is not sinister, it's just we don't have it in front of us. Okay, so we've got appointments.
Kayla Fontaine, you saw tonight, our new part-time police officer. Susan Worth is looking to be appointed to the Community Preservation Commission, and Taryn Long, that name's from, he's the director of Mission E4, which is a nonprofit in town looking to join the Economic Development Committee.
I'd like to make a motion then that can I do both of them at the same? Okay, make a motion that we accept the appointments of Susan Worth, Community Preservation Commission, and Taryn Long for the Economic Development Committee.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Okay, and a wage authorization as well, which we didn't do with her before.
Oh, and what's the wording on that? Is that the waiting period? Is there a waiting period?
Waiving the notification period.
Waiting notification, okay. I move to accept the wage authorization for Kayla Fontaine, part-time police officer, the wage,
Waiving the
Waiving-
notification of the wage authorization.
waiving the notification period.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Committee updates.
Just for the
6 years,
wording.
I still don't get it straight.
The wording, since it comes up a lot, so based on charter, I'm allowed to appoint quite a few employees in town. The board retaining, fire, and then the library trustees retaining their positions. But by charter, we have to tell you, I have to tell you that I'm doing it, so what you're waiving is giving you, I have to give you a certain amount of time.
Oh, he knows. It just doesn't come to him, so.
Not everyone knows. I get questions about that.
Yeah,
Why
no,
do
I'm-
you have to?
Okay, so committee updates, moving along here. I already gave you town center in case if anyone wants anything further on that, just come to me. Other than that, no QEMP updates from the last meeting, and that's all for that. I don't have anything reasonably anticipated. Anybody else here? Anything else they want to bring up? No? Okay. Public press? Mom say no? Is that?
It's full early.
I said the mom's saying no.
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. 8:23 adjourned. 27.